All right, today we're opening up a pretty harrowing case file. It's a story about a tragedy that unfolded with just terrifying speed. We're going to piece together how this silent killer brought a whole sanctuary to its knees. But also, and this is the incredible part, how a revolutionary new science emerged from the ashes.
So this is where our story really kicks off. And it starts with a number, 72. Just let that sink in. 72 tigers lost. Now, this isn't just some statistic on a spreadsheet. No, this is an absolutely catastrophic loss for a species that's already teetering on the brink. This one number, it sets the whole stage for the crisis we're about to dive into.
Okay, let's set the scene. The year is 2026. We're in Chiang Mai, Thailand, at the Tiger Kingdom facility. Now, it started out as maybe a few isolated cases of illness, something you might see from time to time. Well, it spiraled. It spiraled into a full-blown, absolutely devastating outbreak.
I mean, just try to picture it. You have this facility, right? It's dedicated to conservation, to protecting these incredible animals. And then, almost overnight, it becomes a hot zone. There's this unseen enemy, moving silently from one enclosure to the next, just leaving devastation in its wake. The keepers, the vets, everyone, they were suddenly in this desperate race against time, scrambling to launch an emergency investigation to figure out what in the world was wiping out their entire population.
And this really drives home the scale of the catastrophe. Yeah, we see the 72 deaths, and that's awful, but look at that second bar. That's the part that's truly terrifying. A 100% exposure rate in the affected enclosures. You heard that right. Every single tiger in those areas was exposed. There was no safe corner, nowhere to hide. The threat was just absolute.
So the crisis is in full swing, right? The investigators have one burning, urgent question they have to answer. What exactly are we fighting here? What is this silent killer? And here it is, the culprit. Feline Parvovirus, or FPV for short. You might also hear it called Feline Panleukopenia Virus, which is a bit of a mouthful, but it's a really descriptive name we'll get into later. Now, this is a tiny, single-stranded DNA virus, but, don't let its size fool you. This thing is incredibly contagious, it's notoriously tough, and for these tigers, it was a death sentence.
And here you can actually see the enemy. For the first time, we can put a face to the name. These are actual electron microscope images of the virus itself. This is the microscopic stalker that caused so much devastation. It's just a chilling reminder, isn't it, that the deadliest threats out there are often the ones you can't even see.
So what's the deal with this virus? What's its profile, its rap sheet? Well, first off, it's incredibly hardy. I mean, it can survive out in the environment for up to a whole year. That makes it a constant, persistent threat. It's also a specialist. It targets and destroys the body's most active, rapidly dividing cells. And when it does that, you get complete systemic failure. And the way it spreads, it's just so insidious. It's through the fecal-oral route and contaminated objects. Think cages, food bowls, even the hands of the caretakers who are trying so desperately to help. So the big takeaway here is that they weren't just fighting a disease in the tigers. They were fighting the environment itself. The killer was literally everywhere. And it was patient.
Okay, so we've identified the killer. We know its name, but how does it operate? Once it gets inside a host, what's its method of attack? What does it actually do?
Well, the progression is just terrifyingly fast and brutal. It starts with the basics, a high fever, extreme lethargy. The animal is just not right. But then comes the gastric crisis. We're talking uncontrollable vomiting and severe bloody diarrhea. From that point on, the decline is it's a free fall. Severe dehydration sets in, which leads to hypovolemic shock as the body loses all its fluids and the circulatory system starts to fail. It's like a multi-front assault that completely overwhelms the animal in just a matter of days.
And believe it or not, what's happening on the inside is even more destructive. The virus basically wages a war on three critical fronts at once. First, it just shreds the intestinal lining. That explains all those awful gastric symptoms. But then, and this is key, it also attacks the bone marrow and the thymus. These are the factories of the immune system. This is what ultimately leads to that total systemic collapse. And you can see the proof right here on this chart. I mean, just look at that drop. A healthy tiger, its white blood cell count is sitting pretty around 12,000. By day 3 of this infection, it's plummeted to 4,000. And by day 5, it's down to just 800. This catastrophic drop is the absolute hallmark of the disease. And remember that long name, panleukopenia?
This is why. Pan means all, leuko is for white cells, and penia means deficiency, a deficiency of all white blood cells. This virus doesn't just get around the immune system, it absolutely annihilates it.
So at this point, the picture looks incredibly bleak, right? But the story, it's got another twist. There was a huge complication in this race to save the animals, and it's centered around the one tool we all think of as our best defense against viruses.
And this is probably the exact question you're asking yourself right now, right? I mean, we have really effective vaccines for FPV in our pet cats, so why on earth couldn't they just vaccinate the tigers and stop this whole nightmare in its tracks?
Well, here's the hard truth. A vaccine, it's a shield, not a sword. It's incredibly effective when you give it before exposure. It's like basic training for the immune system, teaching it to recognize and fight the enemy. But once an animal is already infected, that virus is replicating at an explosive rate. I mean, it's moving way faster than a vaccine could ever trigger a new immune response. A vaccine prevents, it doesn't cure an active, raging infection. So the crucial thing to get here is that prevention and treatment are two completely different battlefields. For the tigers who are already exposed, that one tool everyone relies on, it was just completely off the table, useless.
In this quote from the conservation health lead at the time, it just says it all. The window between exposure and fatal outcome is measured in days. The entire battle, from the moment of exposure to the fatal end, plays out in just a few days. So if you can't use a vaccine as a cure, your only weapon left is speed. You have to be faster than the virus. The question is, how?
And that brings us to the final chapter of our story. Because out of this awful tragedy, a revolution was born. A brand new kind of weapon forged in the fire of this outbreak, designed to give conservationists the one thing they needed more than anything else, a head start.
You know, the principle is actually pretty simple. If your enemy moves at lightning speed, you just can't afford to be slow. Think about it. Traditional lab tests can take days to get results back. And those are days these tigers simply did not have. To win this kind of race, you have to identify the enemy the moment it crosses the starting line, not halfway through the race.
And this is the game changer. It's called rapid molecular diagnostics. Okay, the easiest way to think about it is like a portable crime lab, but for viruses. So instead of having to send samples away and wait anxiously for days for results, these new tools can detect the virus's unique genetic fingerprint, its DNA, right there, on site, at the enclosure, and with incredible precision. What this means is that staff can identify infected tigers before they even start showing severe symptoms. They can isolate them immediately, and, this is the most important part, they can break the chain of transmission and protect the animals that are still healthy.
So, we end with this thought. The tragedy at Tiger Kingdom. It was an absolutely painful lesson in the sheer speed and ferocity of these viral threats. But maybe, just maybe, the legacy of those 72 tigers is the development of this powerful new tool, a tool that could prevent the next outbreak. It really leaves us with a question, doesn't it? Could this diagnostic revolution be the key to finally safeguarding the world's most vulnerable species from all the other silent killers that are still lurking out there in the shadows?